Hello, tis Black. Yeah, it's because intro's over. Welcome in. Welcome to Writer's Block. Hope you're having a great Monday. I keep thinking it's Thursday because we used to do Writer's Block on Thursdays. But welcome in, folks. We are joined by a guest today who I've actually written a short story with, and it's published on Amazon, available to buy. Just saying. GMJ Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Yeah, the clock right. It's a great fun read. Currently $3 on Amazon, and in addition to doing such fantastic collaborations as that, I do editing, primarily specializing in RPGs and like sci-fi stuff. Physicist in training by day, and just general nerd by night. I'm super stoked to be here.
Hell yeah, we're really happy to have you on, of course, and this is gonna be a really good episode because I know how Jay thinks, so it's gonna be a lot easier to like world build rather than just having on somebody we haven't done this with before. It's just gonna things are just gonna come out. So really looking forward to that. Omni, would you like to reintroduce yourself for the crowd here?
Sure, there we go. There's my choice. Hello, everyone. I'm the last Dom Detector, your favorite robot American. Thank you all for tuning in to yet another Writer's Block. You guys can catch me on my own channel. I'm a Twitch streamer. I've been working on tabletop role playing settings for quite some time. It's been 20 years since I started working my Legacy TTRPG project. You're running that pretty soon, as well as also a couple of what was D&D, now Pathfinder 2e games coming out within the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out. And let me pass over to our illustrious host, Red.
Yeah, just a second, double checking some things, making sure the stream is actually running.
It seems like it's going good.
Yeah. Tis okay, cool. Just making sure because errors abound. I actually have a whole screen for that now, so hopefully it doesn't happen. But I would like to show it off at some point if things get fucky. So let me throw it over to the rules. Without further ado, I think we should get right into it. Jay, what is your first word?
So my first word is dream, mostly
Ooh.
inspired by today's date,
Oh
MLK
yeah,
Day. What better word than dream?
I agree. That's a really great choice. And yeah, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Never stop fighting the good fight. Uh, and I was really happy to see that his son is still advocating for rights and stuff like that. That was really good to see. Really inspiring and stuff like that. Dream's a great word.
Yeah. So I suppose to surround that with a little bit of context,
Hmm.
kind of building off of last session, like there was a lot of talk of martyrdom and um, where you go, blasphemy, and other little things that kind of touched on like a cultural set of values. And I'm curious, like what that set of values is really based on, and that's kind of what I built my word groups around for this. So I'm curious to see what the culture dreams about, what the overarching like the American dream, but for this particular world.
Interesting. Hmm.
Nice, and yeah, we can create a completely different society. We can continue off the one that we left off on with Fleet Dietrich. Make sure to check out Fleet Dietrich. They're a very cool person. Um, but yeah, we could do whatever we want. But
Oh,
yeah, dreams. Let's see here. Well, like I said, we can continue if that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do.
I mean, I was really getting into that. I mean, honestly, it's up to really, I suppose, everyone here and in chat. I liked where it started to go, but I could also see just kind of like taking something and run with it. If you do have a culture of dreamers, perhaps a little bit more idealistic than grounded, trying to realize things that aren't realistic, that could also be an interesting direction. Perhaps getting a little bit away from the core concept I was thinking of, but I could also I could see a creative aspect there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly an option. Like the question of do we have a faction that does that? Well, until we make it,
Yeah.
like that's what we're here for. So.
Yeah. If nothing else, having that heart of a culture where you have the doers, and then you have the thinkers, and then you have the dreamers, where it's like, okay, well, where does the morality actually come in here?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially like in a post-war society, there's going to be a lot of like a post-devastation period society. There is going to be a lot of people that are focusing on humanism and like focusing on the self and stuff like that. So taking a look at like a Renaissance-esque society would be very interesting in that regard, because we don't really have one of those yet, technically. So yeah, no, I like dream a lot. Dreams are very good. It's a simple word that inspires a lot of different ideas, and that's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
So I'm a dreamer. Stop with that, John Lennon. So, okay. Well, I think that's Omni's first word, though.
Yeah. First off, I really like that prompt. That's a good one. I'm gonna reach into one of my, because I have a bunch of words here, because I'd like to shotgun and then pick out what I think would fit in this. I'm gonna go with banner for this.
Banner.
In the same vein as like dreaming that we talked about here, where it's about idealism, I feel nothing like embodies idealism quite like a banner. It's literally it's the phrase we use nowadays to describe someone who's going after a cause. They're picking up their banner. It's a term that in the modern day, it's kind of been lost to antiquity for its true meaning, where back in the day, to pick up your banner is to announce your regiment is going to fight. So, if you want to withdraw, you lower your banner and run, and rules of law, rules of war at the era were like, okay, yeah, they're routing. Don't shoot them. There's no need to. Don't waste ammo. Don't kill them. That's going to get us in all sorts of trouble with all the neighboring kingdoms we're allies with. But if you want to fight and you rally, you raise the banner again, turn around, and begin advancing. So to do that is to announce you're pursuing something. And I feel like with the idealism of dream, banner feels appropriate. Literally something to rally around.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's almost like taking dream and all right, how do we actionize this?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a giant sign. It's a giant stick that says, "Stand by me. We're doing a thing." Yeah.
It's the musical version.
Heard the music. Yeah, I immediately heard that in my head.
No, I love that. I mean, what is an ideal if not a symbol of some sort? And yeah, I really like that.
All right, Rad. It sounds like we're on to your first word then, buddy.
Sure. I just read one of my words and I'm just like, damn, I'm really projecting today, aren't I? I'm gonna go with a weird word since we have some nice calm words. I'm gonna go with the word Carnifex. So no, this is not a Warhammer thing. Warhammer is just was one of those edgy things. Just we take everything Latin. Carnifex is a term for a Roman executioner. So I was thinking we have these nice pleasant words like dream and banner. It's oh yeah, we can rally behind this, but it's just what happens if people don't rally behind this? I think there's I think there's cause for just it's like post-revolution France. They had the national razor. They were getting rid of people that were trying to cling on to the old ways in the most forceful and brutal way possible. Naris, thanks for the sub. I appreciate you. Wow, let's see.
Oh, thank you, Naris.
10 months. Wow, thank you. Damn, much love. Big love. But you know, like Carnifex, the whole idea of just like, yeah, it's like we had this like utopian idea, but like, what do we have to get to achieve that? Like, what do we have to do to get to that idea that we, you know, that we make the idea a reality? Like what do we have to do? And a lot of times that ends in bloodshed, and that's just the sad truth of things. So I'm thinking that this society is like, yeah, they have a bunch of dreamers and stuff like that, and these dreamers have moved forward. They're actually putting forth their ideas and like making them, like manifesting them. But you know, they're doing good things, but at what are they doing to achieve good things? You know, there's no kind deed goes unpunished.
Interesting. So I kind of like the idea of like executioners. At very least, like the other, like I did a look. I was, as you were talking about, I was looking into like the word like the word carnifex, and like in Rome, it was an ancient executioner. Entertainingly, in other nations, I think that was in France. If the word carnifex was used in that context, it was specifically a slaughter master, someone who actually slays animals, well, specifically worn out animals
butcher.
and livestock. So, which is, yeah, there's like, honestly, for an animal, that's an executioner. Like, there's no distinction there. For a cow, as far as they're concerned, they might as well wear Roman legionary hats. So, that's a really cool word. Like, I wonder how we're going to make that, because that's some noble bright and some grim dark, and just sort of mash that in. So let's see how that works. I like that.
Yeah, I'm taking that vibe as well. I mean, you're very right with something. If change is going to be made, then like there is going to be resistance to change, no matter what kind of change it is, and like how you respond to that, like that says a lot. And I mean, depending on what kind of change is being made, and if we are setting up a Renaissance era where it's like, hey, we're getting away from this really like in current cultural mindsets, really flawed, perhaps even evil like culture, we're changing away from that. So anybody clinging to it is flawed and evil, and using that to like justify slaughter and massacre and mass executions.
Yeah. The biggest one I think of is France, just because like that's the most obvious one.
To the guillotine with you. Oh, I should have brought my mug.
To quote the history of the world in 2 hours, the Robespierre said we should get all the people and put them under the guillotine and chop people's heads off until finally someone chopped his head off. You can make a religion out of no don'ts.
Yeah, Robespierre was kind of a troubled person. I'll say that much.
Yeah, anyone who looks at a guillotine and goes, "This is a fine social solution for all that ails us," maybe needed to have a couple extra hugs.
Yeah, if nothing else.
I'm
just saying nowadays he's probably onto something, and his ideas might be.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm saying if he knew some of the folks that are currently on planet Earth with the amount of money they have, I imagine he'd be the first guy like, so I had this really cool invention back in the day.
Make a religion.
Might find it solves some problems.
Yeah.
Watch me. I will make a religion of executioners. That actually sounds pretty badass. The whole idea of that, like they're like righteous executioners that go and hunt down the wicked, quote unquote, but they're literally just executioners. Like that's their whole thing. They're not even like warriors or anything of that ilk.
It's almost unexpected. Like
Don't.
I knew it. I knew you were going there.
No.
I'm so glad I'm Immediately it popped in my head and I saw red robes and I'm like, someone's going to quote it. Someone at this table is going to quote it.
All right, well, Jay, what's your second word? And please tell me it's not Spanish or Inquisition.
Oh, me? My second word?
Yeah.
Miasma. No, it is not.
Just like the unimpressed look on both our faces, like. Okay.
Let's go 3 for 3.
All the color leaves out of our face. We're like, oh no.
No, my second word is civility.
Civility. Okay, you got all these y'all got these pleasant words though. Google Docs.
It's a vibe. So civility, I was kind of, I don't know, kind of going like from where you left off, you have this, especially if we are taking to the extreme of a religion of execution, this kind of like divine persecution that's going on, almost a crusade. Um, like, if there's that much change that's going on where you don't know, like at that point, no one really knows what to expect whenever they're stepping outside. So how do you remain civil? Civil generally has a very like stable context to it. You know, as a civilian, what's expected of you. You pay your taxes. You know don't break laws, and you work to support your local economy. Cool. Like, what if the economy's collapsing? What if, you know, the tax rate might be this or it might be that, and if you don't pay it, you get your head chopped off because now you're not supporting the cause. So exploring what civility means in this context could be interesting.
I like that idea.
Yeah, no, I really like the idea of just like oh, do your part, or you'll lose this civility that you've been shown.
That is literally Starship Troopers levels of society right there. Like, I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part. 6-year-old kid with fully automatic weapons jumps forward. I'm doing my part too. Everyone laughs and the audience all cringe. Yeah, no, that is interesting, and there is like there's a lot of cultural resonance with that kind of interpretation, like that kind of almost that near parody level perception of the government. A lot of people, right? Like, how many folks when you talk to them about taxes, and they're like, I can't stand tax. They just take out of my pocket, and you're like, that is going into like the roads, the hospitals, basic services, power. Like, you know, you do need to do that, but there's this mentality, this belief structure that's been built around that, where when you mentioned taxes, and I was just like, this is literally how a lot of people actually think the IRS functions. They really do think the IRS is like waiting for you to slip up and bust your door down with a SWAT team to make you pay your taxes, which is not how it works.
No, they're surprisingly forgiving. Like,
yeah, no. If anything, they're really actually not quite as competent as we hoped. As history has revealed. So, but
you're busting the door down of a place you lived at 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
They know exactly how much.
15 letters.
They know exactly how much we need to pay in taxes. Yet, if we get it wrong, they'll come after you.
Yeah, no.
They know exactly how much we need to pay, but yet we have to calculate it. And if we calculate it wrong, then we're the ones that get in trouble. It's just like, why can't you just tell us? How much, like every other fucking first world country, why can't you just tell us how much we owe rather than having to add math on top of it?
Because people who like to itemize their own stuff decide to make it law. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Hey, camera, can you focus?
No.
Nope.
Just like me.
There we go.
Nice.
I wish there was a little dial for me to work on the focus.
I was just training a dog on like focusing this morning. I think I used that exact thing. Like, pay attention to me. Treat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that is kind of a part of it though. Like that idea of like not knowing what your civil duty really is, and that idea of instability, and like, do they actually know what they're doing here? Do I even know what I'm doing here? I'm not going to admit that in public, but you know, privately, do I know what I'm doing here?
You have that moment of dissonance where you're just like, it's like, wait a minute.
Like political existential dread.
Where you realize, oh God, we're all just like fifth graders we got older, but we didn't really get smarter. And oh God, everyone's a fifth grader after a certain point. Oh God, the president's basically a 40-year-old fifth grader. Oh God. And yeah, no, when you realize, it's very freeing. It's a stare into the abyss moment. You can either take it as the good, oh, no one knows what they're doing, so good luck. Just
oh God. Michael Foxworthy was right.
No one
I'm
knows
not
what
smarter
we're
than a
doing.
fifth grader.
Yeah, the world is rudderless and we are spiraling to the void. And yeah,
that his name? Michael Fox, something Foxworthy.
Here's our darkness in our setting. So I like that though. That's an interesting take on it. Utility. I'm going to take my second word and slap in relentless.
Slap in what?
Relentless.
Relentless.
So I've been, again, like on my end, I'm always thinking about the setting. I usually tend to think of the setting from the perspective of player characters and their interaction on it. And this is very clearly going to be made into a game, as me and Reddit mentioned more than once. And the player characters are leaders of people. So, like, leaders of forces or factions. They can be military, they can be diplomatic, they can be merchant, whatever. But they're leaders. And so, to me, the imagery of this, like, between Napoleonic and World War I era we're aiming for, relentless feels like the perfect word to describe it. Like, that is what World War I and Napoleonic era combat is. It is relentless. It's not precise. To pretend it's precise would be fucking laughable, actually. Like, literally, it's, hey guys, we can't make this trench move. Cool. We're gonna pour 5,000 extra people there and hope it works. 5,000 people later, we'll pour another 5,000 in after, like, give or take a month. We'll see how fast they can get across the muddy earth. It's like, yeah, no, it's not exactly a precise science. And so, tying that in socially, I feel like we're making, like, a little subculture here. It's driven by a very pure, like, a very puritanical, or, like, at least personally puritanical vision, a positive vision of some ideas. So there's something that's driving these people onward. But the reality of it is that after we get past the vision, the execution is becoming a little bit muddier. We're getting to the point where, like, oh, these people have executioners. They rally around banners. There's a civility sense. There's a civility sense of how does this system function, where you have both a dream that is embodied by these people, and they're willing to kill for it. And so, I feel like you can say the society is relentlessly pursuing that dream, and I feel the question is by doing that, are they undermining that very dream? I just grabbed that and stretched that as hard as I fucking could. So
No, that was good. That was good.
That was really good. Thanks for the sub, buddy. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Hanrogan.
Don't worry. I know him before he said anything.
No. I figured when you reacted positively, I was like, okay, I it's fine.
We all just give each other shit.
This is a rated R stream.
All the mods put big eyes emojis in chat and then relax at the same time.
He's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh, I like real.
What the dog do?
Let me see. Let me see my words here. Let's see. Like I said, I didn't mean to project, but
not splooge.
No, I'm not gonna say. Yeah, my next word is splooge. So my next word is disappointment. That's what I was saying when, like, the word generator was bullying me. I just saw disappointment, and then I was like still looking at more words, and it's just like I just see bitch. I'm just like, all right, I'm done. I don't want to come up with my own words.
Your word generator is very aggressive today, right?
Yeah.
It's vile. It really is. So, what a projector I feel personally. It's here. How you doing, Bill? So, disappointment. I was thinking that not so much. I'm not projecting, I swear to God. A word generator came up with this, not me. I was thinking, like, something happens that was, like, not, like, utterly tragic. There wasn't, like, this horrible annihilation or anything like that, but there was a figure that came into power, much like, what's his name? Oliver Cromwell in Britain. Like, they wanted to break away from the monarchy. It's at one point. I don't remember the era, forgive me. But Cromwell wanted to break away from the monarchy, and he was a military general. I was like, okay, I'm going to run the country the way I run the military. And it's just like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. And then he, within 2 or 3 years, absolutely every single British citizen hated his guts and were demanding to bring their royalty back. That's how much they hated Cromwell. So when I say disappointment, let me digress. When I say disappointment, I mean something or someone was such an immense disappointment after just showing so much promise, like Napoleon. Napoleon was another big fart, you know. Like he was he was revered as a hero of France, and then he turns around, he's just like, I'm actually the God Emperor of France now. It's just, and everybody that loved him, including like all these philosophers, were just like, yeah, no, you were a good person until you became an actual egomaniac. Like,
Yeah.
what's the French philosopher? It starts with a V.
Voltaire.
Voltaire. Yes, thank you. Voltaire was one of the people that was like highly praising Napoleon, and then like just full 180. Just like, I don't like this Napoleon guy anymore. He's kind of a pretentious prick. It just, I feel like something or somebody, mostly somebody, when I say disappointment, came in showing that we could do a better way, but also just kind of damaged the idea, by existing. So now, in order to make up for this disappointment, you have all these things, like all these like safety nets in place, like the Carnifex. The whole idea of just like, we need to keep people in check so they don't try to rise up against this disappointment again, just in case we have one. And there's probably a lot of political propaganda purposely going out to make people look like these political leaders look better than they actually are. And they're a lot more careful and close-lipped about what they allow the public to see. So yeah, disappointment.
It's an interesting combination. All right, resentment, or not resentment. Sorry, relentlessness.
Relentless disappointment. Just like me and parents.
Disappointment. So, like, there's obviously a very strong drive to make change, and like if nothing else, that disappointment and how that disappointment didn't turn into failure, like that says a lot, because a lot of things, like if it's a movement and it's not big enough and there is a disappointment like that, fizzles, like absolute mood killer, like nah baby, blow out the candles. um,
Damn.
But I like where that's going.
I do too. I think that is such a historical vibe. Is like how many nations have risen up promising, and honestly stayed prominent for generations, and all it takes is one weak link in a dynasty for the whole thing to overnight practically. Civilizations can take hundreds, thousands of years to build. They can take months to dissolve. And it is, man, disappointment. Ain't that a byword for like literally the past decade.
I just really like the word disappointment because it's like so crippling. It's not like apocalyptic or like destruction or hatred. It's just
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the single most hurtful thing that someone can say to you if like you respect them is I'm not angry. This implies that they don't think that you're doing this on purpose. It says they think that you have done something, and it just makes them sad that you didn't know better. And god damn, that doesn't hurt. You'd almost rather they be angry at you and then get it out explosively. And like, so it almost feels like as if, so we have a civilization that was built on this core ideology.
Some sort of radical change is like
this
kind of
this positive motion, this positive movement. Everyone rallied around it. They fought for it. Their civilization changed around it. And whether over the course of it or in just like one person or like a number of people, because even sometimes it doesn't even take one person. Sometimes it takes just like a couple of people to fuck things up so hard that no one can ever make it right, and you gotta start from scratch. Looking at basically every single nation state in Europe at one point or another that got eaten by one of the many other larger nation states. And all it took was just 2 generations of heirs that were not good, one that was okay, and the one that was coming next that just either wasn't existent or wasn't capable. And now we're in this situation where the general populace has gone from the ideal is strong to we fucked this one. I like that. That's a good one, Ryan.
Thank you. Voltaire shows up as then disappointed. Yeah, literally. Yeah, exactly. Just Voltaire is just like so excited about like Napoleon. Like Napoleon's a great like thing to rally around for the pride of France, and then just immediately just like, actually, I'm the god emperor now.
Let me get solid gold armor made for myself. Didn't actually do that. Just saying. I don't think you could wear solid gold armor. I don't think that would work.
You probably could.
Wouldn't do a whole lot for you.
Yeah, it's
It would
pretty
be
soft.
insanely heavy. Yeah.
Sapphire
What's-
encrusted codpiece. Yeah, I could see it.
I
You might want to get that one checked out.
I mean, don't.
There's a
don't
cream for
look,
that.
Don't look too hard into Google, but yeah, no, there was a lot of noblemen out there who thought that was a good idea. So I'm not kidding. Like, there's a whole
No. There's a whole thing with like medieval armor where they have like a little metal tube that goes up like this. That is, people are like, oh, that's just so they could show off their dick. No, that was actually made for the purpose of not getting their cock smashed in. It like had a. It's weird, but it was a real. It had a purpose. It wasn't just like because like a flat codpiece. If you get hit right in a flat codpiece, that's gonna. And that's not going to really do anything. Same reason boob plate.
But it was also 100% a flex as well. Like, you don't actually...
No, 100%.
Like, yeah, you don't make a piece of your armor actually phallic, so much so it's not deniable, and then make it look like that, and then filigree the rest of your armor around it, and not have had the conversation with your armor of, I want a bigger dick on my armor.
Can you imagine talking to your blacksmith about that? Like, my good sir, I'd like a larger penis, please.
It is a little bit of the medieval equivalent of crotch stuffing, so you know, it is what it is. Speaking of this conversation got off the rails really quickly. What's the next word? Save me from myself, please.
No. You're not going to say "speaking of" and then like transition to my word from like
okay.
enhanced codpiece.
Okay, I'll throw it to Alvine in chat. The truck and nuts
truck
armor. Yes, that is accurate.
Your truck has pronouns.
Historical
balls.
Actual historical parallel. Early 2000s truck nuts. Early 15th century metal codpiece. Let's go.
So my third word. Okay, so this one, I'm mostly just kind of like. All right, this is a twofer kind of thing.
Sure.
So the word is integral.
Integral.
A couple of different pronunciations there. There's integral. Integral. I can talk today, I swear. Integral. Something that is like, integral to a being, or integral to an object, some deep property. And then there's integral, which is a mathematical thing that's kind of complicated, but essentially just means the infinite sum of all parts. And I think that duality in particular is kind of nifty, and how you can have something that goes really deep, like integral as essence, and then integral, something that you could really interpret as pretty surface level, like it's the sum of the parts, not the parts themselves. So that duality kind of seems to you've got a really pure, like, core motive, like the integrity is there. It's really trying to express itself, but the sum of the parts is not adding up to that dream. Math rant over.
No, we're all about projecting here today, right? It's like apparently. No, I like that a lot. I just had a deja vu moment. I don't know why. I feel like I've said something similar to that. No, I really like integral because it also kind of it makes you think about. So I've been thinking about it from the sense of like some of the parts, as you were saying, just like, what does this society look like? Is it like, are people forced to act and be a certain way so that they can all be the same, or are they just like, are there just like a good amount of outliers to where it's and acceptable outliers? It makes you think like what's okay and what isn't okay, and what isn't a part of like the whole machine, as it were, quote unquote.
Hyper vocal minority kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
that's a great word.
Yeah, I agree. I love the interpretation of that. I actually didn't know that was what that word meant, so thank you. That's really cool to learn.
Physics by day. This is my jam.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
Man, that is a really fucking cool
Yep.
word.
Jordan Science Ashley.
Okay. So I don't actually generally publicize the middle name, but yeah, my middle name is Science.
Wear it. Be proud of
Yeah,
it. That's fucking
yeah.
amazingly great.
Yeah. Legal middle name, Science. Come at me. Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, qualifications here. Like
Exactly. No, that was half the point. Like
yeah.
one of these days I'm gonna walk into a lab, I'm gonna want to like shoot a laser at something. They're gonna tell me no, that you can't use that way. And I'm gonna look at them and I'm gonna say, I can. I actually can. My middle name is Science. So excuse me.
Why should I change my middle name to? According to the
I was
word
gonna say,
generator,
just don't use that word generator.
I was gonna say, according to the word generator, bitch would be my middle name.
Oh
I can
boy,
see
there's
it
no way
now.
for me to there is no way for me to engage with that won't end in tears. So I'm gonna throw my next word out, which is fury.
Ooh, that's so good.
I
Sorry.
am no, it's okay. I'm just surprised.
Primary color.
I'm pretty sure it's been mentioned once or twice, like maybe, but I don't think it ever made it through the gauntlet into the actual like. I'm not even sure if we brought it
I
up
don't
so
care.
far
I
this
like it.
season. Yeah.
Like,
No,
if Jesse gets a
somehow.
veto, I get a veto on that.
Somehow we've not once brought up Fury this season, and that feels so wrong. I'm throwing this in there for multiple reasons. One, we are talking about a setting which is on the verge of a world war, effectively. Like if it's not in World War, it's like it's right there. Like at the start of the campaign in this setting is probably the launch of the war, or the immediate build up to it, or the attempting to prevent it, but it is on the way. There has been and is a large amount of armed conflict across this place. There's a lot of struggling nations. They're all fighting over the scraps of what's left after this larger empire. You don't take up a musket or a sword and charge into battle behind a flapping piece of fabric just because you have ideals. Like I feel it is very important to drive home the fact that you can have an incredibly strong moral compass. You can have an ideology that pulls you away from people and still internally not be able to mesh that with a willingness to harm someone for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the number of people that I have met that I have vehemently disagreed with. And I will admit, there are some people that make me do question my pacifism, but I have not broken it yet. And so, not that I think my ideals are any less important, but I would not personally be willing to kill for them. And I think, especially when it comes to war, it isn't just having the right idea. You need to be angry about it before you can commit soldiers to war. There's a reason why in every war in history, before you go to battle, there's inevitably derogatory terms for the foe. No matter how, like, extreme or minimalized they are. Like, even if it's as simple as just, calling them targets. Like, you do that. Because to kill someone is an extremely personal act. Even done in the industrial scale of war, it's millions in the world wars anyway. Hundreds or thousands of people each having their own little personal crisis every time they pull the trigger. The only way you do that is desperation and rage. And fury, I feel, is a touchstone. And going with this culture, where they go from this ideological, like, purity, this ideologically pure motive to, like, slowly devolving, I'm not sure whether in decadence or function, until eventually the dream is either dead or barely standing there, or clearly underlined, to disappointment, to war, or at least a state where they're on the verge of it. Yeah, no, there's gonna be a lot of pissed people in the streets, and I'll guarantee a lot of them probably took up muskets. So that's where my word comes from in this instance.
Yeah, no, I love that. I was kind of going back and forth with my last word. I thought about going for rage. I like fury better. I don't know. Like I just got done reading this book that was like one of the best reads I've had in a bit. It's called The Case for Rage by Maisha Cherry, and it is about like systemic racism and the psychological effect that has, and how there's this cultural idea that all anger is bad and it cannot be productive. And like I got into an argument with my philosophy professor about this a few months ago, actually. um, and
no.
essentially it was like this book presents a really good case, like a case for rage, not just anger but rage, and kind of maybe flipping what you were talking about a little bit, Omni. But like maybe it isn't the people that are like aiding in this devolvement. Maybe it's the people that are just fed up with the failure, like the disappointment. They're fed up with the lack of progress that's being made. Um, because that's the mentality that I was really drawn to in the book. So very biased here, but like that really spoke very strongly and very clearly about how anger can be used to produce good. And like one of the things that I brought up with my professor was, all right, so if there wasn't such a strong vocal anger against slavery and against racism, would we have the world that we're in? Flawed as it is, actual slavery doesn't exist in America with the same prevalence that it did, at the very, very least.
Right. It's not institutionalized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another case, the Stonewall riots. Without that threat of violence, it doesn't even actually have to be violence itself, but anger, rage, fury is that threat of violence. It, like you said, is that motivator.
There's a. I'm just gonna pop in very quick, and I'll throw it over to you, Red, for your comment on it. But there's a line in American Gods where
I love that book.
the book and also the show was but there were some moments in it that were so good because some of the actors are A-tier actors, and there's nothing they can do that was that bad. And in it, the character the Sansi is talking to the storyteller Spider is talking to a bunch of slaves who were in the boat on the way to the New World during that terrible era, and he's talking to them, and he's describing them what's happening, and most of them are horrified, like they're traumatized to hear this is what's going to happen to them over the next 200, 300 years. And one of them is just froth at the mouth, just like getting pissed, and he's like, that's the response I'm looking for, because fear and sad, that's one thing, but angry gets shit done, and it's a motivator. Like, I think it's one of those things that it could be good or bad. I don't think it's inherently evil, but that's a big political fucking debate.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that Aristotle was the one that said, sorry, I've gotten a little bit into philosophy in the past year.
No, please.
I think that Aristotle had an interesting perspective on anger, is something along the lines of like the wise man essentially just feels anger, but feels it for the right reasons. Like that righteous anger can only be righteous if it is actually behind a righteous cause. So depending on the actual true integral purity of the cause that is behind this change, like that anger could be a very, very positive thing, or it could be worsening the situation.
yeah,
100%. Along the lines of just like anger and fury, spite is like one of those that's like kind of lumped into that. Spite doing something in the face of, like, despite something. I'm talking about all this. I just keep thinking of fucking despite all my rage, all that shit. But like, I think that anger is definitely going to be a motivator for this society, as we were saying, because like there's a disappointment, so there's got to be some anger there. It's not just like, oh, there isn't just like a vapid fart of like, like people are just, oh, we're disappointed. There's nothing behind it.
Does that need to be like a default word that's tossed in? Is fart?
Fart, yeah. No, fart's a great word. It's just like it's there one
You've
minute,
already
it
done my
stinks,
ass,
and then
don't
it's
need to do
gone.
it
Yeah,
again.
Oh, yeah, same word.
Sorry.
But no, I keep using fart. My brain. I have a one-track brain right now. So, personally speaking, I've seen spite do a lot of things for me. you know, the whole Napoleon was a fan of farts, evidently. But like the whole idea of just things pissing you off so bad that you're just like, you know what? In spite of that, I'm gonna do it anyway. So, um, personal example, I've had a lot of folks in my life, not not in a mean way, but I have like when I was younger. Kids are fucking mean because and they're mean because they
Oh.
speak their minds like completely unfiltered. So when I was younger, I used to get made fun of for my weight a lot. But like as I got older into high school, that didn't happen as much. We would tease each other and blah blah blah, whatever, guy shit, toxic guy shit. But uh, I didn't let up until recently, I let that sort of just be like, you know what, yeah, that's just kind of how it's going to be. But now I'm just sort of like, you know what, in spite of all that shit, I was like, I'm going to lose a fuckload of weight. I'm going to get in shape and say, fuck it. I'm going to stop like letting things bother me because it's like, this clearly bothers me and there's one clear solution. It's either I accept myself for the way I look right now or I change myself to the way I want to look right now. And I've wanted to look my whole life. So I've done that. I did the right thing, not right thing. I did the other option. If you are happy with the way you look and the way you feel, by all means. I was not, but I can't help but feel I have been the most productive I have been by literally just hyping myself up by getting mad at myself. Like it just the whole idea of just like I can't fucking skip today. I'm gonna be pissed at myself if I do this. I'm gonna be pissed at myself if I do that. Not doing that. It can be a bit toxic, sure, but I don't let it like overwhelm me. Just the idea of just doing something consistently and beating myself up for it if I don't do it. And that's what's gotten me to where I am, and that's what's gotten a lot of people to where they are. Just being like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be mad at myself if I don't do it. And it's just like you come out. Depending on how you handle it, I feel like I've handled it quite healthily so far. But like you can come out a better person just by using those like negative emotions for something productive. You know, like nobody fights a war because they're happy about it. Like nobody's happy to like start. Nobody's excited or happy to start doing something that would be good for them in the long run. Nobody's happy to stop smoking. Nobody's happy to stop drinking or doing bad habits and stuff like that. Nobody's happy. I wasn't happy to fucking hop on a goddamn elliptical and be wheezing my fucking guts up the first time I did it. It's just we don't do it because we want to. We don't do it because we know it's going to make us happy in that instant. We do it because we know it's going to eventually make us happy. So there, where there is fury, there will soon be happiness. You know, because it's their anger in the pursuit of happiness. It's a bit like Germany's current flag. There's the black. How's it ordered? It's black. It's black, red, and yellow. I know that. I'm trying to remember the
black,
order.
red, gold.
Black. Yeah, out of the darkness, through bloodshed, and into the light. That's what that means. Like that's why it's ordered in the way that it is. So just like yes, there's darkness and anger and sorrow and literal death, but when we move past all that, there is light on the other side, and it's yeah, no, I don't know. I'm getting on a fucking soapbox. Fucking Jay's getting me all.
I mean, it's a very good soapbox. I mean, you brought up a couple really good points. I mean, first off, like everyone talks about specifically with fitness. So getting off on a slight tangent, perhaps, but following your tangent. So everyone talks about like personal accountability in like fitness goals, holding yourself accountable, but no one actually talks about what that actually fucking means.
Right.
Like the implication there is you get pissed at yourself if you fuck up. And for some people, that doesn't work. For some people, that's not a good motivator. And
Absolutely.
shielding that and trying to sugarcoat that is not a good way to do it. So first off, thank you for just like being honest about that.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not what worked for me isn't going to work for everybody, and I understand that. It's just like the only way I've ever gotten things done with myself is just been like, I'm going to be so fucking mad if I don't do it, or somebody else is going to be upset with me. It's just like, just fucking do it.
Yeah, that accountability is one of those words that I hate because it is just like a sugarcoat for like somebody's gonna be pissed, like
Yeah.
or worse, disappointed.
There is a callback.
I don't remember what my other point was because I got like really hyped about that. So yeah, just thank you for that, and maybe the other one will come to me eventually.
I just, you know, it's just one of the biggest things is. That and I'm going to go off on a tangent, but it is going to be retroactively applied to this topic here.
Hopping on the train.
Yeah, sure. Why not? We're all about trains here. Um,
Tiny secret.
tiny secret locomotive. I still remember that one to this day. The whole idea of like getting mad at yourself, yeah, sure, it can like lead to. It leads there is some trouble in that. You're never gonna be like, I'm gonna be mad at myself. I'm gonna be angry. I'm gonna feel this sort of like guilt. It's just like, yeah, sure, that can be toxic and that can lead into a bad loop. But it's just like, it's not as simple as just doing something every day. It's building the habit. And trying to remember the exact point I was trying to get at with this. Beating yourself up in the beginning is okay to an extent. You can't just sit around and be like, I fucking hate myself. That's not good. Like, self-hatred is not a great motivator.
Yeah.
The whole idea of being angry at yourself is because, not because you hate yourself, but because you want yourself to do better and you know that you can do better. And yeah, it's just the whole idea of bringing that back to what we're talking about is like, yeah, we had a couple of really crappy takes like at this idea. Thanks for the resub, boss. 13 months, hell yeah. Thanks, boss. Appreciate you, Derek. And Dim, yeah, it is Dim Studios. You know, like I was saying,
Dim Studios.
Dim Studios. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I tell you what, my stupidity rubs off on people. It is a disease. It just like runs rampant. It's
not stupidity. Creative simplicity.
You say creative simplicity, but most of my urges when people say two words that I like a lot, I just think in my head like, I'm gonna combine those two words, and that's funny. It's like,
that's creative simplicity right there.
My brain is weird. But no, the whole idea of getting mad at yourself is not to like bring self-hatred, like, which leads around to the whole idea of, since we're talking about a country scale, this is the difference between nationalism and patriotism. Patriotism is a healthy love for your country or your people, blah blah blah. Nationalism is an unhealthy love, because no matter what happens, you are still going to see that no matter what they do, you're going to justify it in some way, shape, or form. Which patriotism is, hey, I live here, I love this place, but I'm also able to criticize and see that we are doing things wrong.
Yep.
Nationalism is, oh yeah, we just did this horrible fucking thing, but we can justify it because fuck yeah, I love this country. It's like, no, that's not okay. That's unhealthy. That's indoctrination and stuff like that. Yeah. Patriotism is caring about yourself, but also being willing to criticize yourself, do some like introspection and be like, okay, I could be doing this better. I'm doing this really good. I could be doing this better. We all see. There's no such thing as stagnation. There's no room for stagnation, especially in us as people and entire countries. Because like when we stagnate, nothing happens, and when nothing happens, people die and things fall apart. So you can't stagnate. I mean, hell, look at when the House and the Senate have just closed for the day.
Oh my God.
Nothing happened. Everybody's pissed. It doesn't matter whose side you're on. It doesn't matter if you're right-leaning or left-leaning or a centrist. When nothing's getting done, everybody hates it. It's as simple as that. So if you stagnate, nothing happens, and it's just like, okay, we need to figure something out.
I would say low-hanging fruit, but it's about as high as the fruit is going to get. So, like, yeah, no. The fact that it hangs this low is because it's so heavy on the vine. So I'll just snatch it whenever you need to.
Was that like 6 different metaphors you strung into one statement?
Yes, I did. It was terrible.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I could feel the weight of my sentence buckling, but it worked. Like the Senate. Anyway.
No.
So, yeah.
Too much. Too far.
Yeah, no, it was too far. Yeah.
It's treason.
I mean, I wasn't going to do any like fear leads to anger leads to hate kind of stuff, but like
it does.
I kind of wish I could change my thing to suffering now.
Yeah. I feel like Souls kind of summarized it perfectly, which is my country right or wrong, that's nationalism. My country right or wrong, if right, it to be kept right, if wrong, to be set right, that's patriotism. Yeah, that's fair. Exactly. Like that's the sort of thing that I had to deal with in the Scouts. I had to come to a very early realization there's a lot of folks that, like in the Scout oath, on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and country, to obey the Scout law, yada yada. And for a lot of people, they took that as like, okay, so whatever Uncle Sam says, I'm going to do. And after reading it a little bit, I realized no, I need to represent my society in a positive light and meaningfully try to make it better. And I can very comfortably say I dislike a great deal of the things that have happened in my lifetime with my country, and still say that I love what it could become, given the proper care and respect for its citizens. So, yeah. Anyway, transformative stuff. Fury, rage, transformative shit. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Nothing
wait.
gets done without a little bit of anger.
Red, was your word spite or
No, spite's
Okay.
a great word though. My last word is something.
because that lit in like really well, but
It did, yeah.
It's a little bit too similar though. So my last word is academic, which is quite a bit different from what we've been talking about, but I think that's a nice little curveball. When I think of academic, I think of books and shit like that. I'm like, academia. It's like, oh, you're at a school and there's books everywhere and you're learning specific things and blah blah blah. But one thing that people don't realize, one thing people don't realize about academics is that academia, quote unquote, is just a different. It's like a separated subculture within a society, and
yeah.
it's that whole thing. The exact definition of academia is the environment or community concerned with the pursuit of research, education, and scholarship. So you have dreamers and academia, peanut butter jelly. So you got the whole idea of just like, yeah, these people are of incredibly high learning, but they're also kind of they're the idea of there's this modern idea that's gone. We're a little bit more self-aware of it now, but it's existed since humanity's existed, the idea of conformity. And people are just like, oh, I'm different because I think this way. I read this one philosopher and I think exactly this way. And then it zooms out and 700, 800 people that dress, talk, look, and act the same exact way as they do. There's no such thing as you're a conformist or you're hipster. There's no such thing. There's other people that are like you. There's always going to be other people that are like you. So I like the idea that there's a lot of political bullshit going on where these guys are just very cyclical in the way that they argue with each other and like the horseshoe theory type shit. They both want very similar things, but just with different methods and stuff like that, and they beat each other up for it. Sound familiar? Probably. But the whole idea of it's a very toxic society of just like, I had this idea, or I believe in this philosopher, or I believe in this, and oh, maybe this guy wasn't so bad after all. He had some good ideas, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff, and that leads to a lot of political turmoil. Just like, oh yeah, this Karl Marx guy, he had some great ideas. I'm gonna abuse them and interpret them the way I want to, and it makes you think.
Carl, that kills people.
But like, it makes you think for a moment. The whole idea of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church for well over 1,000 years, didn't want regular people reading the Bible. Why? So they could give them their interpretation of the Bible. Why? Because when you get random people getting their own interpretations of the Bible, well, also let me start by saying it's to oppress people. But let me continue with what I was saying. When you give random people the idea to like start interpreting things for themselves, they start getting ideas, and ideas are dangerous because you cannot kill an idea. So when you got people like Martin Luther, the German, not Martin Luther King, happy birthday to him, but like Martin Luther, the German priest, like his whole thing was, yeah, I read the Bible and I've been teaching it to regular people and they've actually made some pretty good points. And so he made this 95 Theses, obviously, and all this shit about like, hey, y'all are fucked up. So it's just like the idea of the oppression of thoughts or the suppression of thoughts can lead to oppressive stances. And when people start realizing that their thoughts are being suppressed, they start getting furious. Tie-in? Okay. So and then there's that initial disappointment of the idea of like, oh, we've been having our thoughts controlled. They're not telling us what we need to know. They're telling us what we need to know. Like certain thing, and there's going to be a lot of hypocrisy and like and a lack of civility. There's going to be that sort of like jaded edge where it's just like, oh yeah, these people are teaching themselves things now. They're going and interpreting words and books and tomes that weren't previously known to them because there's a boost in linguistics and people learning how to read and stuff like that. So you have this whole issue with liberal folks that are interpreting things in their own light and saying that, hey, maybe the old way is bullshit, which I hate to break it to you, but that's happened millions of times throughout every single society that's ever fucking existed. They start to figure things out and figure out how everything's working, and then they break the pattern, and then the pattern gets put back together in a little bit more of a complicated way. So I'm thinking, how many times has this society suffered that exact thing, brought themselves back together, and how do they interpret their history? Do they do it in an actual cynical light where like this is exactly what happened and we need to learn from it, or do they do it in an American nationalist sort of light where it's just like, oh yeah, General Sherman, he went down there and reunited the Confederates. He certainly didn't have his soldiers I don't think I could say the R word on stream, but that to women and kill children and stuff like that through the South. It's just like, let's be a little bit more honest. Like, are they honest or are they glorifiers? Are they romanticizers? Yeah. Like, how do they and like how and when I mean they, I mean their society as a whole, like government. Like, how do they try to like push that on people?
Right. I think that's fair.
I really like that. I really like that as a way to really round this out. Like my gut instinct whenever you say like academia is, you kind of touched on this subculture that is removed. Like there's a step between them and the rest of society, and that disconnect leads to a lot of issues. And one of those big issues is control of information, and that idea of oh gosh, I recently heard a talk about like the idea of like a public philosopher, and how that role is really just kind of going out of style because with the advent of the internet and anybody can look anything up now. True, but there's paywalls, and there's this ridiculous idea of like, oh yeah, you can find anything on the internet, but good luck actually interpreting it. Like recently, I'm not going to go on a full-on rant about this, but because I was not privy to a very very specific bit of mathematical lingo, I wasted about 50 hours trying to interpret something in a completely wrong way because I just hadn't been like privy to this one piece of information. It was ridiculous, and stuff like that happens so much, especially in modern times in the fields of things like mathematics and a lot of the fundamental sciences. You get things like pop psychology and pop physics is popping up, which is fantastic, and these things are great. There's some misinformation that comes along with it and wrong interpretations, which sucks, but at least the information is getting out there. So whenever there is a part of a culture that is trying to like, maybe not even trying, maybe is just like as a byproduct of their own internal processes, like cloistering off this information, like that can be detrimental to any kind of progress.
Yeah, misinformation would have been a great word too in that regard. The whole idea of just like, yeah, people are trying to simplify things, but in simplicity, there may be elegance in simplicity, but there's also a loss of substance. And that might be a critical loss of substance. The whole idea of like you said, you didn't know this one piece of lingo, so it
which was an abbreviation. It was literally like, hey, this is really long and hard to write out, so we're going to abbreviate it into something that looks exactly like something else, and you wouldn't know the difference unless you know this one little key piece of info.
Yeah, it's context clues. Anger.
I'm so sorry. Your pain is actually palpable. Like,
well, I think we are to the point where we're going to pick our words and go from there.
Yeah. Excite.
So each of us are going to pick two, and we'll go from there.
Oh.
We already have something.
I have to make decisions.
Yep, decision making. Wow, wow.
I don't have to go first, do I?
You don't have to.
Can I veto that? Can I not?
Do you want me or Red to go first, and then you can go next?
I would like you guys to roll off to see who goes first.
I got a D100 in front of me.
How about
Of course,
that?
you grab the 1-2 die. All right, sure, no problem. I'll use my.
They're my gay ones too, so.
All right, give me a second. I'm going to open my dice roller and do it that way because I'm not fishing out
Oh.
2d10 in the dark.
Oh, big baby. Wah, wah.
All right, get ready. 3, 2, 1. Wait. That one.
Is that a wow? That's impressive. Is that a D6?
On a D100?
That is a D100.
Oh.
It's a D100.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, no, it happened.
Are you serious?
Dude, it's a 1 on a D100. Get fucked. Go first.
Omni,
Did you get a 1?
I rolled a 1. I'm going to take my whole ass camera off, and you're going to see this.
Okay, we've actually got
1
someone
double 0
who knows a little bit of math here. What are the odds of 2 nat 1s on 2 D100s?
1 in 10,000, I believe.
There you go, folks.
We're going to pick it up and roll it again.
Let's do it again.
You want to clip
3,
that one?
2, 1.
29.
29.
Looks like 89. So
Yep, go
I'll
first.
pick my words first. They said it couldn't be done. They said it was impossible. Good. I'm gonna take Dreamer and Academic because I really like the idea of like a high academic society that's very much like, oh, there's a certain period in Japan. Somebody please tell me what period it was. There's a period in Japan where the government's just like, we ain't doing shit no more. And they just started, like, all the people that were supposed to like be representing people and doing government stuff, we just decided to start painting and doing art and just like drinking all day. It's just like, man, that's great. I want to do that. Like, those guys are. Somebody tell me what period that is. I could not tell you. I'm not well versed in
tell you the name of it,
Japanese.
I do know it's the period
Asian
right
history.
before the warring states where everything got really, really chill, and then that's when nationalism rose and that got fun.
Yeah, it's the good old Edo period, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. The warring states period. The thing that literally it's the Japanese equivalent of the Wild West, that thing that's been so mythologized that it's very difficult to see what's actually real. I'm going to go with my words of disappointment and I think fury. I'm going to take fury.
I too am a disappointing fury.
Yes. I feel like those are two very core principles of this civilization that we're talking about here, this thing we're making. It feels like we need that.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, no, I like it a lot. And Jay, that'll be you then.
Okay. Man, this is hard.
Because I hope narrowing it down a little bit helped at least.
Yeah, it did. It's still hard.
There are no wrong answers, only the ones you like the most. And they are just words. They cannot be disappointed or made sad. So,
but they're also ideas. Okay.
We can use them too. But full disclosure, 9 times out of 10 when we do this, we go back to this list that hasn't been picked and do it anyway. So it's not going to be swallowed by the void. Well, it'll come back.
Okay. All right. Current effects and civility. I think that rounds out the like odd duality we have going on down there. Banner was really, really close in there though. Like,
So that you can't use Banner. It's just that these are the main foci.
I know. It's just the prioritization there is difficult because like I really like the intrinsic symbolism of a banner.
Mm.
Actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm changing my answer. May I please swap out civility for banner?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye, civility.
So, card effects and banner.
What? Control Y underlined? I did not know that. Let's see here. I usually hit Control U, but okay.
It is Control U. That's really weird.
I don't know why Control Y was working, but...
So sometimes programs will use redo as do again. So whatever you did last, it'll redo that function. I use that in Excel a lot. It's
right.
nice.
Control Y and
I'll keep
Control
that one in
Z.
mind.
Gotcha. That's smart. But I
Okay.
completely forgot that was a thing.
Well,
Free tip of the day.
you learn something new every day here on Riders Block. By every day, I mean just Mondays. Okay, well, let's just start. We will sort of just like, if you have an idea, we can run with it. Pick one or two, maybe even three of the words to incorporate into your thought process, and then I'll start penning things down.
All right. So, well, I feel like we've got the basis of the society. Like its spirit is kind of down. So,
one thing we've been dancing around, what is this change? Like, what is this cause that we're rallying behind?
Good question.
You brought up Cromwell, which really leads me to like right now in my mind is the idea of like property and possession and like right to self and self-governance. With like Cromwell's early ideas and the whole like spark of the Lockean notions, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be a bit too general.
I mean, I think that would be fine because the whole like focus of the society now isn't on that. It's like it's on the whole idea of just like, yeah, so we need to have a bit more emphasis on the importance of the self, but not so much so that we literally just have a society that accomplishes nothing and does nothing.
Yeah.
Which is, there's always a delicate balance.
Yeah, that could be an interesting rebound if you've got something that like tried to devolve into anarchy and was like, hey, so this kind of sucks. Can we like maybe get along? Can that happen?
Anarchy is another one of
Get
those.
along?
Yeah, the anarchy is one of those philosophies or government styles. It's like, yeah, it's a great idea, but it's not gonna work.
I mean, I'm just going to put this out there. Anarchy as a government style is what, it is what agnosticism is to belief. Like it's it's the equivalent of writing none of the above in the box. Like if you say my favorite governmental style is anarchy, then it's not that you don't have a preference of government style, it's that you just don't want it. It's like asking, what's your favorite fruit juice? And they're like, I don't drink juice. Okay, so your favorite fruit juice is air. Got you, and write you down for air. Like, no, they don't want fruit juice. If you're an anarchist, you don't want a government. And so when folks are like, I want an anarchist-style government, just take a moment.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of your
mouth? Yes. Like, just take a step back and look at what you did. Look at the word crime you performed.
Look at that. Look at it.
Shame. But yeah, like, so I think that's an interesting idea. Like the idea that they started to course correct vastly away from this original idea, and they were like, even that's too much. Let's steer it a little further back, and they're trying to find a balance. I think that's fair. I feel like it could also be down to interpretation of what that ideal is. Oh, sure. Like, as an example, the American dream was brought up earlier, the concept of. And honestly, that has changed so fucking much in the past. I don't even
like lawns or fences.
Yeah, like honestly, like the idea of the American dream rose to prominence, and the idea that in their era, it's like, oh, well, you can have a little slice of what seems like comfort and what we all crave. And to us, we're like, what it really looked like was you all settled for a lot of mediocrity and a really unpleasant existence that you all convinced yourselves you didn't want. And prior to that, the idea of the American dream would have been considered ridiculous anyway, because the American dream wasn't a thing you were delivered. It was that by coming to the US, theoretically, you could do something. Like a lot of folks that left their nations to immigrate to the US did so not because they thought that they were going to get a specific prescribed thing, but they were fleeing a prescribed unpleasant existence elsewhere for the possibility of moving somewhere where they felt they could start fresh. That's why almost every major wave of immigration in the US has been preceded by a disaster or political upheaval or something. Because the average person doesn't want to change their whole life because the grass is a little greener over there. They'll do it because the grass is on fire here, and I don't want to burn to death. So, the idea, though, of interpreting that ideology, that core ideology, that can drift so dramatically. Even the base words of, like, the U.S. Constitution again. Like, our interpretation of the U.S. Constitution, forgetting the many amendments we've added to it, has drifted so far from the original mark of probably what the original founders intended. And for the record, I think that's a good thing. Because the original founders were 200 or over 200-year-old white men who, many of whom were slave owners. I don't particularly think they should be determining our laws and our belief systems now.
Yeah.
So maybe the society has both drifted from that original ideal, but disagreed on what that ideal even was at its core. Put emphasis on one side of it and leaned away from maybe the original interpretation of it. And now they're singing a backswing into a different interpretation, a reactionary approach to what they just had.
Some of our founding fathers are approaching or at 300 or older.
Well, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. No, I just realized I'm sitting here like 2 days ago. I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure that my idea of how many people, like the world population, is wrong. Because I learned this in, like, you know, middle school-ish. And I'm sitting here like that was a lot of years ago. What was it back then? Oh, it was close to 6 billion. Okay, what is it today? Oh, it's only about a third more than that.
Just a little bit, yeah. I just looked that up. Like, yeah, it is slowing a little bit, like, but it's not really by that much.
It's the whole idea that it's slowing because of the we have yet to find yet another. We have yet to find a breakthrough that we have seen with nitrogen-based fertilizer, like we saw in the 20th century.
Yeah, I mean, there's this. I'm not going to get on that rant.
Yeah, that's a very long rant. I'm sure we all have.
Yeah, we could definitely. What was that guy's name? German guy, German scientist.
There's a lot. There was a lot.
No, Haber, yes. Or Haber. It'd be Haber because it's German. Yeah, Haber. Haber also invented mustard gas. Yeah, he also he created the lives of like several million people, but also took the lives of like 1 million people.
I feel like it's kind of, anytime you talk about science, that's like, that to me is low-hanging fruit to be like, they developed this. Yeah, doctor developed the Gatling gun, physicists developed the nuclear bomb, and every horrifying innovation of warfare that was ever developed was developed originally by a scientist. Usually,
they made cell phones too, okay?
Yeah, like usually when they made these things, they didn't in their wildest dreams assume someone was going to put a barrel and a muzzle on it. And then when they did, they usually thought, oh, surely they would never be stupid enough to fire it.
The Chinese would beg to differ. Those motherfuckers were using gunpowder for the exact. They invented gunpowder for exact reason. Shoot at each other.
There are still innovations that have occurred throughout history that are meant for it, but as a general rule of thumb, swiping at a scientist to say they made a weapon, like, cool. That's basically anyone with any.
Bro, look, Leonardo da Vinci invented a tank. Shut up!
Exactly.
Like, there's so many like layers. Also, well,
Haber.
Haber specifically. I was talking about the nitrogen fertilizer thing. He invented mustard gas. And he also invented many of the common pesticides that we still use today, which happen to have an odor in them, so you can detect them. And take a wild guess what the Nazis did with that stuff. They removed the chemical agent that allowed you to smell, and Haber was indirectly responsible for the Holocaust. Wonderful, right? Anyway, yeah, wow, what a complicated guy that Haber was. But anyway, let's digress. Where were we going with like the world building portion of this?
I think we came from the. I came from the idea that we were talking about this original ideology, and that we had curved away from it, then curved back. And my interpretation of it wasn't just they abandoned the philosophy, but that maybe they just instead worked towards a different interpretation of it,
right?
And now they're working back towards it. And I think that's
they're establishing their Overton window. Yeah.
Overton window?
Oh, sorry. You can blame Soul for that one. So Soul taught me I mean, they're really like politically learned. Um, so I learned a lot of my own stuff from them. But
Like Wolf
he
Road.
was talking about like extremist
Oh.
views, and like so you have the realm of things that are like acceptable to discuss in public as far as
Yeah.
politics go, which is already pretty small. And then there's just outside of that on either side, and like that's essentially the Overton window.
Gotcha. The window of discourse. Yeah, I just
Yeah,
looked that up. That's really oh god, yeah, that's a whew, that's a huge vibe for me. So yeah, no. That's a great interpretation. But yeah, they are establishing what's their norm, aren't they? Like they had it, it's shifted, and now they're shifting it back.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Okay. Um. So what was the disappointment that led to this? Just like we were talking about. Jay was saying like the former government. We can pretty much just like make it simple. Just like yeah, the former government, which was a little bit too laissez-faire about things, was a disappointment. Now we need more because the people can't live without some sort of help. Um, it's not because the people are incompetent, but because the government created it so that there would be an interdependency.
Yeah, yeah. Previous government was oh, how would you go about that? So there's a couple ways. You could go with the like complete hands off of like almost a disinterest in creating change, or you could go with the very much hands on resistance to change of like, no, this is the way things are, this is the way things are working. So, like that enforced stagnation. Um, which would give rise to a very, very strong minded culture of dreamers. I think more so than perhaps more so than a government that was like, it's fine. You can do what you want. You got this.
oh yeah. No, that tracks historically. I mean, again, locally, like the hippies rose out of the Cold War. Like that was literally like right after the United States had their beginning, the launch of their atomic age, and all that jazz. Basically, coexisting with the idea of a white picket fence was free love and down with
Bomb
tyranny.
shelters.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, everyone gets their 2.5 kids and their picket fence and their green lawn, and also potential nuclear fuck holocaust. So yeah, no. And meanwhile, coexisting with that was free love and fighting for personal rights and the rights of others. So much so that basically every major civil movement occurred. Every major civil movement of the past 100 years that I can think of the past, like prior to the 2000s, occurred in that window, that like 20-year window. That's when they peaked. So, and when they did finally start going, okay, we'll loosen some of this up, the fire died down a bit, and a lot of those folks that were hippies ended up becoming, middle managers and retirees. That is unfortunately how that shit tends to go.
Thank you for the hydration check, Naris.
Thank you.
Oh, I have non-alcoholic things here. Okay.
So let's see here. So what we're seeing is a stronger government, not because we're sort of emphasizing the idea that like they're like okay, so the government created this dependency, they didn't follow through on it, so it's like okay, break that shit away, rebuild from the ground up. We're gonna have a more solid ground foundation, so stuff like this can't happen again, where the government representatives can't just decide they don't feel like representing us or don't feel like making positive changes and just stagnating, because stagnation is the death of any civilization. I mean, look at Rome. Why do you think Rome fell? Just because they stagnated super hard. And stagnated's like a really simple one-word thing for what happened to Rome, but it's one of the many reasons it fell. The idea that they didn't want to adopt new ideologies, new theories, theorems of running government, blah blah blah. They wanted to stick in the past 1,000 years. So, I'd imagine that this civilization fell kind of like the Ottomans after World War One, just sort of like, yeah, this government was kind of falling apart already, for the past 40 years. And the killing blow was just sort of the whole idea of like, yeah, you got fucked in World War One. So the people that didn't want to be under the Ottoman Empire were just like, okay, we're going to dissolve this just by like, yeah, we're pulling out, we're going to save our face. And it's like, yep. And then boom, modern day Middle East that is no longer united. And that's the whole result of that.
Suggestion for
Yes.
how we could tie this into the existing world building.
Sure.
We have so far done our best to leave amorphous the giant, super huge empire that went at the end of the last age. What if these people, this culture we're developing, was a regional colony of that empire? And when the empire collapsed, yeah. So like, think like the way, like say, British Columbia as an example, or like the American colonies in that same era, or Jamaica, what have you. Or yeah, no, they have their own culture. But they are, at least they were historically, militarily and politically attached at the hip to the civilization. And then when the civilization imploded, they were kind of left to their own devices. Like it's kind of why a lot of the islands, at least for me, down a lot of the tropical and subtropical islands down in the Caribbean are the way they are, because they were all, especially during the age of exploration, the age of empire, they were being constantly shuffled around like cards in a deck, handed out for a political advantage or conquered for political advantage. And when all those empires either began to die pre-World War I or post-World War II were effectively dead, or at least effectively no longer worldwide empires, suddenly all these little colonized states suddenly go, okay, so what do we do now? Because the only thing that really connected us to this place was this political alignment that just dissolved. And so you have this civilization that made of rose with this larger empire that was, in fact, a beneficiary of this larger empire. And when it collapsed, well, here we are today.
So, what's the name of that one island in the Mediterranean that was just like an island full of lesbian women? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Lesbos?
Was it called Lesbos? Was it really that on the nose?
I think the term lesbian comes from the Isle of Lesbos.
Lesbos.
I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure that's...
Today I learned.
Yeah.
So, they were technically a part of like that ancient area, but they just had their own little thing and they broke away from everything else. Yeah, it was just Lesbos was literally just a massive island full of lesbians, and they just had a great life, and it still exists. The whole idea was like, yeah, we're sick of men being super egotistical and like nonstop having dick fights and dick measuring contests over the territory they own and starting wars. So why don't we just go here and have like a super peaceful, there were men on this island, obviously, but it was women dominated, and it was peaceful. So that's why you don't hear about it. Like,
there's two interpretations of it. It's either Lesbos or Lesvos. Either way.
The B is can be pronounced as a...
Yeah, it's a Grecian letter that we don't have a direct analog for. So kind of just whatever sounds good, Chief. Run with it.
Yeah. That I gave like a really simplified version of like a big part of its history, but yeah, no, I'm not quite on the nose with that. But.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. But yeah, no, it does have a little bit of that energy of a nation state that was once controlling it, now is sort of just gone, and now they're interpreting their own ideologies. I mean, how many British colonies basically decided, okay, well, now that we're not British anymore, we're just going to sort of be tiny little bit and use that as the basis of our governmental structure. That's why parliamentary government is one of the single largest things across the world. Like after Britain collapsed, one of the few things they did manage to export was that it turns out parliamentary government's pretty easy to set up, and it's kind of designed to literally fight so loudly that you can make fun of it and they still get shit occasionally done. So, go figure. The main link to that is Sappho. Yeah, Sappho, Eros, Lesbos, those were all isles. Those were all Grecian isles. That's where half those words come from. If you're wondering where half the words that we use that are Grecian come from. They come from islands. Almost every one of them. So Sappho was a poet. There was another. What am I thinking of? There's Sappho. There was Lesbos, Eros. Eros, I know, was an island. You're a poet. The Real Housewives of the British Parliament.
You're a towel.
Good heavens.
Wasn't there also an Isle of Eros as well? I'm pretty sure there was an Isle of Eros.
Well,
you know what? Honestly, it probably was named after the name.
Lesbos
Oh, it was Erosos. It was Erosos. That's what it was. Sorry.
Lesbos was considered a deity of the island, but that got rotated out. She was the patron god of the island.
I'm sorry, did you say the pigeon god?
Patron.
Patron. Okay.
Pigeon, yeah, they were rings of bread upon thine head.
Patron deity doesn't count. There is an Eros. Yeah, damn it. That's what happened. They like named all their islands after gods and all their gods after islands, and I'm so angry at them. Anyway, so I knew I wasn't wrong.
Island boys. Okay, so we got disappointment down because like it's very clear that the government's a huge fucking disappointment, which is not unlike modern government.
Yeah, no, you know, throughout history, ask someone about their government. It's the one thing they'll all agree on. Everyone hated their government at every point in history ever.
So
like, very few people are okay with it.
We have Fury and Carnifex and stuff like that. So these representatives that still, I have a really cool idea. So imagine this. They don't know that the people, like the regular people of this place, like regular foot soldiers and stuff like that, wouldn't know that the Empire fell unless the, what was the word I'm looking for? The patricians, as it were, told them of it. So one of them could have found out that, oh yeah, the Empire fell, so these fucking assholes don't even have any power anymore. And that's where the Carnifexes come in. And they literally just go and start fucking slaughtering these bastards and like, we have our own culture now. We're not listening to people.
So you're really on the French Revolution
yeah, I was gonna
interpretation of that?
Yes. This is literally Robespierre with axe. is the imagery I'm getting here.
Robespierre, but he's not a skinny little dude that like tells other people to put them to the axe. He is the axe. Like he is the guy that's going around chopping people. He is the Carnifex.
A lot of big like-minded Robespierres with a literal axe to grind.
So yeah, but like I said, my thought process is like the elites, the political influencers that have control over everything. They're panicking. They're like, oh yeah, the Empire just fell. And they're just like, well, we can't tell the regular people, otherwise we'll lose our power. So they probably hid it from them for a good amount of time. And like this recent like revelation is just like, oh, we should like kill all these bastards that have been lying to us for like a decade. So the whole idea of just like using that fury to make change.
That so that has some interesting implications. Throughout history, there's also been, to this day, there's also an interesting overlap between like political culture and academia, mostly in like the networking. So if you want funding for your research project, whether that involves like, hey, I need to like go sail on a ship for a long ways so that I can chart the stars as they move, or like, hey, I need access to that laser. Like there's generally speaking going to be somebody with some extreme political connections involved, which means that there's a lot of like behind closed doors passing of information. So it might not be the case that it was completely cloistered. Upper class academics may have known and may have actually taken that as an opportunity to get ahead of it and start inciting that change.
Interesting.
And then there were others that were using it to, as it always happens in politics, to manipulate people and be like, oh, our great nation is doing better than ever.
Yeah.
and we actually won the war.
Remain calm.
We won the war, lol, from your help.
Yeah.
So keep calm and carry on, children.
Yes.
I mean, that is also
The queen is
like,
not a hologram.
You're right.
But-
Never mind. I was gonna say
God.
something truly awful. I will not.
Well, no, that does also track. Like,
Wait a minute. I'm
historically-
Irish. You can't project a corpse. I guess
Oh
you
my
could.
God.
Sorry. No, look.
See,
I'm
also the
Irish.
Star Wars movies.
Oh God. I
Oh
haven't
no!
seen-
No! Carrie
so-
Fisher, why?
Yeah, no, but that does make a lot of sense. Historically, the one thing that happens when the regime changes usually isn't. Don't tell the normal people that regime change didn't happen, because your average result is that, say what you will about the Men in Black movie, which I love to death, but the one thing they are usually pretty fucking wrong about is the idea that your populace is so stupid they won't find out about shit pretty quickly. Usually, the test of how competent a government is how well you can keep secrets from their people, and that is measured in days, if you're lucky, maybe weeks, but good luck anything over that. So, like, if a government collapses, they're probably the first to know, and they probably read the tea leaves before you did, because that shit, that passes. But historically, when governments change, it's not a matter of who can keep people from knowing, it's who can tell their version of it first and spin it in their direction. That's why the second a government collapses, especially in an area where there's instability inherent in that local government anyway, the first thing that happens is 3 to 4 other folks rise up and say, well, I'm taking control because I have a legitimate claim to this position. And pissing occurs for a while, keys of power exchange until eventually one of them rises to power through either bloodshed, violence, or diplomacy. And usually the other ones that weren't going to get it, they end up in the cabinet anyway. So, either a cabinet or a casket. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, it's an interesting idea.
So I'm playing off of Jay's idea here. The idea, like, there was a good portion of these academics who were just like, okay, we have this knowledge in advance, and we have the ability to tell people and figure out what to do with this information that the Empire fell. So we're going to do good things with this, and we're going to, like, get ahead. We're going to use this to, like, advance the society, blah, blah, blah. And then you got the rest of them that are just like, they don't know the Empire fell, so we can keep taxing them, and then we can have everything that they have for ourselves. And violence ensues. And then you got this whole, and I think that would create a really interesting political turmoil thing, because you do have the academics, and which could be a majority, could be a small minority, could be somewhere in between, whatever. You have a good handful of them that do want the best for this country, but they're thinking that we need to, like, ease people into this, because you can't just drop on them. Yeah, the Empire that represents us back home, they're gone. That's
that is
that's
a
a
safe
devastating
assumption.
blow. So
like, another thing with the academic idea is, like, there's that idea that it's like, oh no, the common folk, they need to be eased into this information. They won't understand. They need it explained to them.
Yep. Men in Black, quote, person is smart, people are dumb, stupid, panicky animals. And again, like, I disagree with that sentiment because I don't think history bears it out. But man, if people don't, over history, insist they know better than everyone else because they're in the halls of power. So and it is often their downfall.
So the thing that I was thinking is that the regular common people, they would have eventually found out about this through one means or another. Oh, yeah. Not because the good academics that were trying to protect them are not genuinely protect them, to make sure that they're not getting chiseled, or they're like they have something to keep working towards, or they have this feeling of, like, trying to. I think that one of their big, I think they have one of their big things that these, like, good, quote unquote, good in this scenario, academics are trying to do is create this sense of patriotism. Just like, we have our own little nation here and we should be proud of it, and blah, blah, blah. By the way, the one that we were born from is dead, but don't worry, we have this really great one right here. Don't worry about it. Like just kind of ease them into it. But then the people in the civilization somehow found out about it. They found out about how the whole Empire home is dead. And they're like, oh, okay, we're just going to kill all these guys. We're going to, like, actually go ape and start killing these academics who, unbeknownst to them, this is the dramatic irony part of this, they were trying to protect them and help them and keep this very thing from happening. And it's like, oh, let's go just kill some of the smartest people in this colony. And then what do you have left? A bunch of angry warriors. And it's going to take some time to get some more smart people, because as we've seen with revolutions, they're kind of rough and rocky for a little bit.
It's the burning of the library all over again.
It literally is. I still haven't recovered from the burning of the Library of Alexandria. I'm still reeling. And well, and another thing, while we're talking about it, Constantinople, the fall of Constantinople still burns a hole in my heart. But sacking and pillaging of Constantinople. Well, they left the door open. But anyway, so the whole idea of we've seen. I mean, look at the American Revolution. Jesus Christ. I mean, like, we had this whole idea of just like fear mongering and just like people overhyping things in their head. It's just like, oh, this is going to be a lot bigger than it actually is. And then you have all this bullshit going on, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, further, Carthage. You know, all these revolutions, they don't like just go from, call back to what I was talking about Germany earlier. Darkness, bloodshed, into the light. There's always a dark point. The bloodshed has to happen. It's a really grim point. And then eventually there will be light at the end of the tunnel. But you have to fight to get to that. And after you kill all the smartest people in the colony, it's just like, oh, you just lost like hundreds of years of knowledge. And I would imagine, like as Jay was saying, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, they probably did start burning a lot of institutions, a lot of academic institutions. Just the idea, just like they were teaching these other smart people to manipulate us and lie to us. So it's just like, oh, so they start burning books and stuff like that. So they're probably going through their early baby revolution phases. You know, I keep calling back to France, but we've seen revolutions all over. I mean, look at the Bolshevik Revolution. That's a fine example of just this extreme momentary burst of violence, just mass murdering of people, and then a really, really rough start. You have Lenin, who is like, oh, he has some promising ideas, evil motherfucker, promising ideas, and then Lenin's just like, whatever you do, when I pass on, do not let that bastard Joseph Stalin take my place, and then they let Joseph Stalin take his place, really rough. And honestly, it's still kind of rough for Russia right now because my oh my.
Yeah, kind of rough for everyone, but that's again low-hanging fruit to speak of.
I mean, yeah, but as we've seen, revolutions don't just magically make everything better. This society still has an inborn fury in it, and they're still trying to figure out what to do with that.
There's a term that's used across various governments where they refer to that phase between governments as a quote transitional period. That's what the formal term is between governments. At least one of the terms used by international law to describe a nation state between governments. It's in a transitional period or a transitional government. They have a body that's carrying them through it. And so during that time is usually when all the shit happens. In some instances, violence can be evaded, like actual blood violence, but if it is, it's because the threat of violence is present. That's one of the reasons why, have you ever heard the phrase, the keys to the kingdom?
Yes.
If you're going to control a nation, you need to have access to the keys. The common interpretation of the keys is you need to have whoever controls the economy, whoever controls the military, and whoever can help you control, manipulate, or communicate with your populace. If you don't have those three things, you cannot control your government. That's a matter of fact. No matter how good you are, no matter how well-intentioned, if the economy will not function in your nation state, if you cannot feed your people, and if the guys with guns are pointing them at you, you are not in charge. And so that's how these nation states, that's one of the reasons why, like we're talking about various collapses of government, we think of the big historical ones, but a lot of the ones that have occurred in the 20th century have occurred in Middle East, Asia, parts of the world that are recovering post World War II from what was effectively the pie cutting of the rest of the world at the hands of the powers that, from their perspective, won and lost World War II. And to this day, it's why we're still struggling with it. And a lot of those empires, when there's a collapse of a government, in some cases, there is no fight. Because the reason government collapsed is because the violence was what caused the government to collapse. Like an assassination or a coup. And that was it. It was literally presidential palace gets surrounded by tanks, president gets smart and goes, okay, and leaves. It's either that or he gets shot. So in this era, it's interesting that we have this government that came from a relatively stable, quote unquote, arrangement of the original government they realized it collapsed, tried to prevent a collapse, and as a result, invoked what probably was a more violent reprisal than what might have happened if they were honest and just said, hey, the government collapsed. We got to do something new ourselves. It would have sucked, but maybe they could have avoided violence, but they didn't.
Yeah, and as Jay and I have been saying, there was an effort to like do the right thing, but it was lost in translation.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That also gives us the our faction of academics who, as you said, good. I feel like nobly intentioned is the nice way of putting it.
Good intentions.
Yeah, they tried, but man, did they miss the mark?
So I suppose the question falls to, like, who is this? If you're coming from a state of stagnation, a government that hasn't done anything, like the next step there, the big draw is going to be promise of a lot of action from most specifically a single individual who has a very strong aura of power. So, like, what is that banner that everyone's rallying behind?
That's a good way to tie in the banner. Yeah, that's an absolutely great question. Is there like a group of people? Is there like one person? Is this like, so I'm trying to think of what we've done previously. Do we have like a, well, actually, let me ask Jay, since she's the guest, of course. Is there just one person they're rallying behind? Is there like a group of people? Is it a philosophy they're rallying behind? What is it they're rallying behind? What is this banner?
It really feels to me like it would be just one person. Like I said, that stagnation, that really is going to be, it's going to lend itself to like really big promises. And big promises from a group tend to be diluted by different perspectives. But if it's only one voice, if it's only one perspective, that comes across as a lot stronger and a lot more believable and a lot more actionable. You don't have bickering, you have doing. So I think the big underlying promise, of course, is change. But what kind of change? I mean, there is this like the idea of that distinction between, again, I might be projecting just the theme of the night. We're projecting into this tonight. So that idea of the academic world just holding information back from the general populace might be a point where this leader, this instigator, has really latched onto, and it's like, look at all that they're hiding from us. Look at all of these lies. Burn it down. Take the information, that control of information, back for ourselves. And that idea of taking back control to essentially a democracy. I don't remember which philosopher it was that was really big on the whole like democracy is the open door for tyranny, but kind of capitalizing on that. Like, what if you have a tyrant who's like, yeah, no, democracy, that's what we're going for here.
It wasn't Locke. It was a philosopher that was of the same time. I know who you're talking about. It was, it might have been Locke. I'm talking philosophy now. What's his name? He wrote the fucking book about how monarchs are good, but only if they actually serve the people.
I can't remember.
He was British.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Cointreau. I'm like, no, that's a liqueur.
That orange flavored dude.
That orange shit. Yeah, hell yeah. Let me see. I need to look that up now because that's gonna bother the fuck. No.
Excuse me while we take a Google break.
We're so we definitely know.
Hume?
No, not Hume. No, wait, what was his name?
Tyranny. I can spell.
Was it Hobbes? I think it was Hobbes.
I think
that's
it
who
was
thinking of.
Hobbes. Yeah.
No
Yes.
way it was
Yeah,
Hobbes.
'cause I just
Yeah,
looked
I'm
it
pretty
up.
sure it was Hobbes because Hobbes was pro monarchy, but he was pro representational monarchy.
You're right.
Yeah, Hobbes the Republican.
That's where the whole
Yeah, that's
yeah, that's where like the whole idea of, well, like if there's this like strong sense of self and that, you know, overrules government, then I mean you get back to natural law, and look where that got us, sticks and stones.
Yeah.
Like, all right, dude, cool.
Hobbes was
Back to your
also a
racist
tiger
theories.
that hung out with a guy named Calvin. But
Shame.
shave. What do you mean shave? It was good. Anyway.
Shame.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, but I like the idea that so I like this figure you're coming up with, and I gotta this is a very imperative question. Is it one of these academics that's pitching these theories that's like broken away from academia, who was shunted out of academic society for their radicalist ideas, quote unquote?
No, but there is one behind the scenes. Like that's the beta man. The alpha man is being used as like. Sorry, no, I'm thinking not like alpha male.
I get where
but
you're
like,
going with it. It's,
yeah.
Again, Omni's dumb. Go ahead.
No, so like the face of the party is
Right, the face.
not, but the face of the party's right hand man definitely is.
They're the one pulling the strings. You got I'm trying to think of the you got Bush and
Yeah, the dude that shot that other dude.
Cheney. Yeah, the guy that shot a guy because he looked like a deer. You got a Bush Cheney situation. Bush isn't a super intellectual guy, but let's just be completely honest. Everybody since the year he was elected called him a fucking idiot, and he kind of is. And then you got Cheney, who's a businessman who's pulling all of the strings and made money off of the war in Iraq. Sue me. So, I mean that was the whole purpose.
I feel like the more charitable comparison would have been Aaron to Moses, where it's just Moses is like, I can't speak good, and Aaron's like, I got you, bro. And
I mean, kind of, but at the same time, it's like,
yeah, no,
I think there is a sinister vibe behind it. I think there's a certain what we're talking about. One of my words being spite. I think there is like spite behind it because like this academic who was kicked out of their society is just like, I don't really give a fuck about the common people. I just want revenge. And I want these stuffy motherfuckers to be shown.
His thesis got rejected.
They didn't like my thesis about basket weaving theory, and I'm mad.
Or as a possibility, it could be that maybe the spite isn't that literal, but in the sense that maybe it's a spite at the civilization that wasn't ready for his beliefs or their beliefs. So as a result, that's the sinister element to it. Is a well, you know, if the old civilization burns, whoop-de-fucking-do. We're not here for the old civilization, we're here for the new one. And this is a great chance to push all my ideologies that were rejected in the prior consensus of minds. They're all gone. And now I got this strongman puppet that I can, you know, Kermit the Frog as long as I need to for my ideology. So.
I like it.
Because I feel that's a little more believable. It's like there's a lot of really seriously mean assholes out there that will do some crazy shit for spite. But like, that's a lot to do. That makes the Count of Monte Cristo seem lazy. Like that is a lot.
No, but Morgan said in the chat, did he get passed over in art school? Morgan, no, we're not going down that route. We're not going down that path. They wrote a book and it's really edgy. But no, I'm just trying to think. These two make interesting characters. So you have the Carnifex, who is the face, and then you have the person who's actually like behind the face of the Carnifex. So there's, you know, like what we're talking about, this person pulling strings. So, and this mastermind, quote unquote, like we were saying, is forcefully shunting and thrusting these new ideals upon people because the current stuff's not working. And also, it's a great distraction from the destruction of their empire. So it's just like, this mastermind isn't stupid. The academics considered them way too much. Like, the academics are probably just like, you're trying to push several centuries into the future in the matter of months. You are going to cause a lot of trouble. It's like, yes, I am, aren't I? And just like gets the card effects. I'm killing you all. I'm burning down all your libraries and taking the books with me. So,
you know, it's like, and this guy's like, oh, you missed one. Like throws one of the books after him just to make sure.
No, but this would make for a good book, by the way. Story anything. But
I already have like 3 that I haven't finished read. All right.
Look, I've been writing down all these ideas and my story ideas and thoughts like private channel. I have so many fucking ideas for stories. I got so many awful ones too, but gotta weed them out.
We have a word for the military mind leader. That's the Carnifex. I propose a word for our scholar behind the scenes.
I don't think they would know. I don't think common people would know that they exist. But yes, I do agree that they should have a name.
Yeah, and I would propose Opifex. OPIF. Literally.
You're going underwater. I can't understand you.
Opifex. OPIFEX. I'll write it down.
Yeah, just type it in the doc.
Sure. It literally means someone who does work. And the emphasis is on creative and mental labor. So, like, let me do this here. Let me just write it down. It's going to write over here. There we go. Oh, there you go. There's the word.
That's interesting. So
yeah,
Carnifex, like the etymology of Carnifex, like flesh maker, turning something that's living into just flesh, taking that. Oh, sorry, no, but I like that. I like that.
No,
continue, please.
No, you're right. The etymology of this word is the etymology of opie in this is power, ability, resources. So it's power maker is what this translates to, as opposed to flesh maker, which is what the Carnifex.
That's metal as fuck. Can we get an album called the Flesh Maker and the Power Maker? Like that would
be. Fuck yeah! Like, I'll growl for that.
It's like a heavy metal, like a Metalocalypse type fucking like.
That is.
I mean, Carnifex is already a metal band.
Oh yeah, it is. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Warhammer metal band, absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of overlap there. Let's be perfectly fair.
I picked Carnifex as my word. One of my words is because there's a word called carnificus, I believe, carnificus of butchering and executioning, and I was like, Carnifex is the noun, while carnificus is the act of being related to the thing. So Carnifex also has like a much more, because I'm secretly a Tyranid fan. Yeah, sure, I love Tyranids. Not really, but no, join us, Red. No, please. Have mercy.
They have Grimly bits.
Oh no. I like this.
Carnivorous also just kind of reminds me of coniferous, and like pine cones. What?
Reminds me of carnivorous, which is also to be of meat, or to eat meat, or like people
to be a meat.
To be I am a meat. Join me in my meat. My meat being. Flesh was one of the words I was thinking about using in that regard, but I like. No, you're trying to regaining composure.
Yeah. Opifex.
I like Opifex. Carnifex, Opifex, and it's like. It sounds very, mostly because it's Latin, but it sounds very like biblically powerful. It's just like, there will always be a Carnifex, but there must always be an Opifex pulling the strings. Like, there's always a face, but there's a body behind said face.
I almost feel like these are terms that might not originate from this culture, that these are terms that other nations have like theoretical. So kind of like in the idea that when you're doing espionage, and you're working on assessing how a government functions, it's largely guesswork. Like, especially if it's not one that has a very strong public presence yet. And so you have to do a lot of theoretical thinking. And so often they'll be like, okay, the movements of these troops, these peoples, these resources implies leadership here. So if people, other nation states in the region that are dealing with this culture are like, yeah, this meathead guy who's running around setting libraries on fire and chopping people's heads off doesn't seem like the kind of person that's writing these press releases. These seem like two totally different minds. So what are we going to call him? Like, call the crazy one the Carnifex and the theoretical brain behind the books the Opifex. We'll go from there. I'm sure they'll, they probably have their own titles, but like that feels like a almost like a target designation or like a threat assessment to
I
me
can see
by
that.
someone else.
There's
And
also
maybe it just
the
fucking stuck.
yeah. Well, yeah, that too. No, that I like that because I was thinking like, okay, you guys mentioned that this might be like the remnants of a culture that was destroyed, and if your culture has been like destroyed, and you're a couple generations into this, and you're trying to recover, there's been some dilution, there's been some forgetting, like content warning for cultural erasure, but like loss of language and loss of customs and norms, and there can be a search to regain that, but there can also be a search to replace.
Mhm.
And that can be found in like, oh, well, this is a power word in this other culture. Let's take that and make it ours.
I like
So
that idea
taking,
because, sorry, go on. I don't want to interrupt you.
well, that was pretty much done. Just taking that and like really running with it and like, yeah, you're calling me the Carnifex. You know what? Yeah, I am the Carnifex.
So I'm thinking that so we were talking about them being a colony. So I was thinking that the Opifex. Now I'm trying to avoid those themes of like colonialization, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking that the Opifex went and spoke to whatever native people they're around and found out a bunch of ideas. It's just like they're living in a very peaceful, lovely society, and we live like in a really like turmoil, like ridden society that's just like stagnated and everything's just antiquated. What if I just take these people's ideas and bring them back? And it's just like, oh, so you have this whole idea of just like I'm going to take this person's culture. I'm not. It wouldn't be an appropriation of culture as much as we need to adopt this in order for our culture to be as healthy as theirs, and like because they're doing something right that we're not, and these patricians are just like. No, those are just regular primitive people. They don't know what they're doing, and then then the Carnifex cuts their heads off. So like so I think the idea that the Opifex is like kind of the they're definitely not a good guy. They're definitely not a bad guy. There's something in between. They're like morally gray. They're like, yes, there must be death and destruction for rapid change. It's like the Great Leap Forward or Alexander, not Alexander the Great, but what's his name? The one in Russia, the second. What's his name?
Oh God, couldn't tell you.
Peter. So the whole idea is just like we need to just be brutal and rapid with change if we want change now, and we clearly need change now because we haven't seen change in a century, and it's just like, oh, that stagnation is just like killing people. So you got people like the Opifex who went out to have their little spiritual journey and just like, okay, we need to find something better. This isn't working. I need to go off into the woods somewhere, be by myself, and then just discover this village of people brought in by them, talked to them, learned of their culture, and just like we need this and we need this on a mass scale, like now and yesterday. So they go back, misinterpreting the things that this society was doing, twists it, and like, okay, let's start killing people because that's the way we're gonna get this, right? And like when they were taught peace, I always love stories that are just like the main character seems like a good person until you realize that they're fucking stupid and that they take something that they interpreted in the way that they want to see it, not the way it's supposed to be or meant to be seen. And they take it back and they fuck everything up. And I really like that arc. There's a character from Magic the Gathering that people absolutely hate for this reason. His name's Lucca. And he did exactly that. He's just like, oh, I learned from these. His whole thing is he learned that he can magically bond with beasts. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he like starts to learn from other beast bonders that, oh, yeah, this is a good thing, blah, blah, blah. Lucca sees it this way. I can bond with all these beasts to lead them as an army and use them as a tool to protect the country. It's just like, no, it's supposed to be like a friendship thing. It's like, fuck you, I'm using them as a tool. It's like, I really like that. And I really think that makes for awesome villains because it's like you can sympathize with them up until that point. And then it's just like, I can kind of see where you're coming from. You're trying to do this for the greater good, but you're also doing horribly awful, no good shit and abusing other people or other species to get what you want. So it makes this really interesting and complicated political scenario where it's just like, was this the right thing to do? Was this ever the right thing to do in any situation? I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent, but I really like the idea of
I
Opifex
like
being
that. I like that a lot.
morally gray.
It actually reminds me a little bit of so the James Cameron Avatar movie, not the most recent one, but the one that came out almost a decade ago, because James Cameron movies come out basically every decade. That particular one, there's this subplot that was running through it that wasn't explored in the movie, but in a couple of the books they talk about. and it's the fact that you have the people who learned about the Na'vi, this alien culture, this indigenous alien culture on this other world, and they learned a lot of useful things that can be applied to Earth biologically. Like, hey, this plant absorbs radiation. This plant can be like a simple nitrogen fixer. These plants are edible and can grow in crap. Like, all this stuff is stuff that we could use on our planet because at the time it was terrible and beyond reason. But there's the ones that are trying to do it for the right reasons, and then there are the ones that are like, yeah, let's just go to Pandora, dig up a couple thousand plants, and start just planting it in, I don't know, say the Amazon, or like the Midwest of the US, and fuck the sun, fuck the biological damage to what's left of Earth. Like, there is that difference of, like, you can encounter something, truly have it transform you, see its power, its virtue, its value, and then just not have the tools to bring it in a positive light. And I think that's because the most painful thing of that is the implied ending to that story, which is the Ozymandias moment of, look at all my works. Like, and there's nothing there.
Look upon my works in despair.
Yeah, and it's just sand, which, God, that's even more despairing than if there was a city. So, yeah. Like, I think that's a powerful motif. It's a really cool one. I like it.
I think we covered all the prompts so far. So, we're also nearing the 2.5 hour mark. So I'm thinking that I would say prompts from the audience, but I think that'll push us like really late. So I think we'll just say Ixnay the prompts for right now from the audience. And I think this has been a really good episode. I don't know about you two, but like
this has been a blast.
We've come up with like a really like profound and kind of just sad society. It's just like, yeah, the regular people are getting fucked over, but the regular people end up being the ones that fuck themselves over in the end. It's like, damn, that's just tragic and real. Like,
I kind of feel like, if from the rulebook perspective where I'm standing, this feels like the kind of like story or side plot that you could be reading in like the intro to every chapter. Like, at the beginning of every chapter is like another part of this story, all the way from beginning to end, and it's just like the tone setter.
Yeah, and I like the idea of like, if you were to play a leader from the society, you might play the Opifex. Like, you might play the person. Who's to say the Opifex is just one person? What if that's just a title handed down to different leaders and stuff like that? Or what if the Opifex isn't just one person at all, and it's just a group of people? Kind of like,
God, it's a council of academics who all are relatively like-minded. Oh, that's such a mind fuck.
Yeah, so
I love that.
Soul's gonna like this, but I don't think anybody else is gonna get it. It's kind of like how MF Doom would have like guys go around wearing the same exact masks as him and pretend to be Doom, just like so he could be everywhere at once. But they're supposed to be them, right? But
right,
the Opifex is just like a mysterious figure. It's like, oh, they're everywhere at once and nowhere somehow. Like, how can you figure that one? But also, that would make. I think that'd be really interesting on, because think about it. This would be one of the only factions in the game where you play two characters. You'd play the Carnifex and the Opifex, and there'd be this inner roleplay kind of thing where it's just like, as the Opifex, are you being completely honest with the Carnifex, or are you just abusing them and just like using their strength and stuff like that to get what you want?
Or you could players one of those two roles and riffing off each other. Like, how often have players made conjoined characters? Like, I want to play, like, this character wants to be the sister of another, or we know each other as old friends. This is, like, the perfect way to tie two characters together, to be like, yeah, we're from the same faction, but we're two totally different sides of that same coin.
Like, see, I'm the gaslighter, and I'm the idiot. It's just like...
And I mean, say what you will, but, like, it's very much it's kind of a Starscream Megatron dynamic there a little bit.
Yeah,
Starscream can do what he wants until Megatron gets wise and beats his ass, claps his ass in front of the Decepticons as a point. And, the Opifex can do what they want until eventually the Carnifex gets wise to know, hey,
I think we're gonna need an OPEX.
Yeah, I'm not as smart as you, but I know what it's like to be used, and you know I kill people for a living, right? Scholars for a living, right? Which also makes, oh god, that makes the OPEX circle even more interesting. The idea that that allows for that kind of thing. It allows for like the rise of like a Carnifex or an OPEX can rise to prominence over one another. Like if there's multiple Carnifexes or like a singular Carnifex for a region, there's multiple OPEXes. The relationship between the OPEX and the Carnifex can change from whoever's leading that council or whoever's representing it time to time. So one of them might get too big for their britches. And then the rest of them suddenly like, okay, let's reassess how we're handling this sociopathic guy. And, you know, it allows you to change characters without literally scratching the whole civilization. Because if the mind and the power behind this, you know, metaphorical throne just overnight, that would be very hard to play the same arrangement in that nation very quickly without some real explanations. So I like that. It allows a little bit of weirdly faction stability for this nation and versatility for players. Galvatron is a superior Decepticon leader. Okay, but he was a lot whinier. They were both whiny, I'm joking. I've loved this episode. I really appreciate what you brought here, Jay. I think we made something really freaking awesome.
I could write 2 or 3 books just based on like what we've made here alone. Like, it gives me Sith vibes too. You know, the whole idea of like the rule of 2. Like it kind of gives me that vibe. It's just like I'm gonna manipulate my apprentice, and then they'll probably eventually overthrow me. But now I'll just kill them and get another one. Like the whole rule of 2. There's never more than 2 at the same time. So. Leonard Nimoy didn't die for this.
Okay, Leonard Nimoy was the best part of Galvatron. Okay, I give you that.
I don't even know you voiced him. That's cool.
I think he actually also didn't he voice. God, I think he voiced not Galvatron, not just Galvatron. He also voiced the big fucking World Eater. Why can't I remember his fucking name? God, I'll remember it later and I'll scream it into the void. We can do this forever.
Well, I think this is a good stopping point for the episode. Jay, could you thank you for joining us? You've been an absolute blast, and I look forward to
My
writing.
pleasure.
Yeah, I look forward to writing and doing more stuff with you in the future.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I would like to toss it over to you to tell folks in chat where they can find you.
Cool. So I do some social stuff. I'm on Twitter. I'm pretty sure it's at GMJ Ashley. Yeah. I also have a website, which is gmj.com, gm-jay.com. And that also has a link to my LinkedIn, which I will maybe be posting like articles on at some point. More importantly, though, Red and I did just recently publish a book. I'm looking to get at least a couple more sales before the end of the month because I have a very specific goal I'm trying to hit. Help me out with that. Yeah. Also, if you need stuff edited, like I got you, especially sci-fi. I love sci-fi so much.
Jay's a good editor, mostly because I was just like, Jay, I don't like editing, and then Jay's just like, I'll take care of it. I'm like, oh. she took care of such a good chunk of the editing. I'm like, yes, I hate editing so much. I loathe it, but Jay's a great editor, and I was very happy to work.
Thank you.
Work with him. I'll post the link to the book as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I also need to check our sales because I haven't checked in a minute. I checked like a couple days ago. But anyway, yeah. Posting that in the chat now. And while I'm doing that, Omni, would you like to tell us about yourself? Pal, buddy, chum?
Yes, of course. Thank you, friend. Friend, comrade, ally. So, yes, I am the Last Omnitech, your favorite robot American. And you guys can catch me on my own Twitch channel, twitch.tv/thelast-omnitect, where I am streaming. I will be streaming 3 times a week again. I managed to finally get my Xbox hooked back up to my PC. So everybody, guess what? This week the Breakfast Club is back on. So 10:30 a.m. EST on Wednesdays, on Thursdays, and on Saturdays. I will very soon also be running my own TTRPG APs, actual plays on my channel, and also one on DMDM Studios. Those will be on my titular legacy TTRPG setting that I've been working on for 20 years. It is finally going to be in the phase of open beta for the community. As a huge thank you for all of you guys helping us out during the holiday season when we were looking at homelessness. You all came to our rescue. The least I can do is share this project I've been super hyped to do for years with you. So, and included in those players is, by the way, our friend Red. So he will be in Legacy First Flight, which will be on DMDM Studios on every other Saturday. When we get that going, we'll let you know more details on the exact times. And otherwise, Legacy Second Flight will be on my channel, as is my first ever, what was going to be attempted run of D&D 5th Ed, is now going to be Pathfinder 2nd Ed, Wild Skies Batanria. I'm super excited for that. Keep an eye out. And other than that, yeah, I'm always here. I'm also on DMDM Studios. Keep an eye out for me. And Red, to you, my friend.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it brief with the stuff. I just want to let y'all know I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate you participating in chat. It's been absolutely wonderful. Y'all know I love Writer's Block. I wanted to say that at the end of the season, I'll probably be the 30th of this month. And from there, Ami and I are going to work on the system. We're probably going to do that live in the afternoons. Just kind of like figure things out with the system. If you want to like backseat, help us build the game, yeah, sure. I'm never going to say no to that. Just as long as you don't get the whole idea man mentality and expect me to give you money. But I appreciate help and ideas and stuff like that, and viewership, of course. But next Writer's Block, same time, 6:30 p.m. CST, next week, Monday. What is the exact number date for that? That is the 23rd. We will have on DMDM Studios, DMDM Studios, Derek, obviously good friend, mutual friend of all of us here, and haven't had him on a Writer's Block anything in a long time, so I'm very happy to have him back on soon. And on the 30th, we're going to be rounding out the end of this season with Nathan from Reckless Attack. I'm very excited to have him on. I'm not letting any of his frogs be... frogs. I'm not letting any of his prompts be frogs or polyps or anything of that manner. I will ban him. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And like I said, I appreciate the viewership. Any last words? Well, that sounded really ominous. Any last words?
Keep writing.
No last words.
I agree. Wonderful. Thanks, folks. We'll be rating ads. Stick around.